For today's video, I want to share some of my favourite plants for betta fish, but these are not your typical generic recommendations. Every plant on this list is one that I've personally kept in my betta fish tank, and each one provides some sort of enrichment for your betta while being incredibly easy to care for. These also stay relatively small, making them perfect plants for nano tanks which most people keep their betta fish in. First up is the floating plant Amazon frogbit. Not only does this help naturally purify your tank water, but it also offers the same kind of enrichment that you can get from other floating plants. One thing that I like to do is hide food pellets amongst its leaves, encouraging my betta fish to go explore and hunt them down to offer some mental enrichment. Now, I can't say for certain if they enjoy this game, but personally I take the rapid movement of their pectoral fins as a good sign to display excitement. Marmalade, my betta fish in my tank with the Amazon frogbit, definitely gets those fins going when searching for her pellets. But the big advantage that Amazon frogbit has over other floating plants is its really long roots. Mine aren't very long right now because they've recently been trimmed, but they can easily get down to the bottom of this tank within 7 days after trimming. I've noticed that multiple betta fish that I've kept in tanks with Amazon frogbit do seem to enjoy hiding in these roots once they've grown out. It is very common for betta fish to rest under floating plants in their tank, probably because it makes them feel safer from birds attacking them from above. But the roots of Amazon frogbit are more spread out and tend to go vertically straight down to the bottom of the tank, making it easier for the betta fish to weave in and out of them while getting directly beneath the leaf cover. In my experience, Amazon frogbit is very easy to keep, but there is two very common issues that I see people consistently run into. The first one is that they have too much water flow at the surface of their tank, which bettas also don't like, but it can cause issues with nutrient uptake for the plant. The second is to have too many snails in the tank which eat at the roots of the tank and cause problems with nutrient uptake, causing the plant to melt. So provided you don't have many snails or much water flow near the surface of your tank, your Amazon frogbit should be very easy to keep. Next up is Anubias, and I know this is a pretty common recommendation, but I do want to get very specific with the exact varieties of Anubias that I recommend for bettas. Now, we will be sticking with varieties specifically from the Anubias barteri species because it's a very beginner-friendly type of Anubias to keep submerged in our aquariums. On top of that, I'm also focusing on varieties that stay small enough for the average betta fish tank while also having leaves large enough for an adult betta fish to rest on if it chooses to. So my top picks of Anubias for betta tanks are Anubias nana, Anubias coinleaf, Anubias Calidifolia, and Anubias nanocoin. There are other options out there, but I personally keep all four of these in a range of different tanks, and they are consistently very easy varieties of Anubias to keep, while also keeping to the size requirements for a smaller tank and the leaf requirements for a betta to rest on. In Marmalade's tank setup, I actually have 3 different Anubias nanocoin plants mounted onto the hardscape to help fill out the plant coverage in that area. One of the main benefits of these larger-leaved Anubias varieties is for enrichment. Betta fish belong to the anabantoid family of fish, which are naturally curious and love exploring their surroundings. Unfortunately, it is difficult to capture footage of Marmalade doing this because she always swims up to the tank glass as soon as she knows I'm near the tank expecting treats or food. But because I work from home from this room, I can look over from the other side of the room and I do see her inspecting what's underneath the leaves in her tank, and she does like to get a good look under the Anubias to see if there's any food or treats or anything that she might be able to eat there. This gives her some mental stimulation and encourages more natural foraging behaviour rather than her just staying stationary and waiting for me to feed her. The other big advantage is that bettas love to rest, nap and even sleep on these broad Anubias leaves. Again, getting video footage of this is also tricky because Marmalade expects treats whenever I'm next to the tank, but I did get this photograph from a few months ago before she fully woke up and swam to the tank glass. If you do stick with either of the 4 varieties of Anubias I mentioned earlier, their leaves are essentially a real-life plant version of those synthetic betta leaves you can find online that serve as betta hammocks. Next up we have Monte Carlo, but fair warning, this plant can be a bit of a challenge to keep in a low-tech tank. If you want something easier, you can try pearlweed instead, but you will need to trim it low on a regular basis, but a lot of people use pearlweed as a carpet because it's so much easier to keep than Monte Carlo. For this example, we have to go back to Marmalade's old tank setup where I had her in a tank with a Monte Carlo carpet. She absolutely loved wriggling around in the Monte Carlo multiple times every single day, and early on this meant that I was consistently having to replant it back into the substrate because her wriggling around in it would uproot it and I just find it floating around in the water column. Now, I've had a few betta fish who do enjoy wriggling around in plants, and at first I was worried that it was a sign of parasites or infection causing irritation, forcing the fish to itch for some relief. But after seeing so many videos on YouTube, Facebook and TikTok of other people's betta fish doing the exact same thing, I just think it's part of bettas being bettas because they do some crazy behaviour that seems really random but does seem to be a consistent thing with this species of fish. Marmalade also liked to inspect the Monte Carlo in her tank for any leftover food, whether it was pellets that I actually added to the tank for her that she missed, or whether it was food wafers that I added for the shrimp to eat, and the shrimp had nibbled them down to a size that was big enough for her to fit in her mouth and steal. I have kept other carpeting plants in other tanks with different betta fish, but Monte Carlo is the only one I've seen them consistently play in. Next up is Staurogyne Repens. I had this plant in one of my old betta fish tanks for one of my older bettas, Cooley, and he would constantly rest on the Staurogyne Repens and watch the shrimp in his tank. One tip for keeping Staurogyne Repens is to pay attention to how it's sold in your area. Like many aquarium plants, you can find this in both the potted form and in the in vitro cup form. If you're planting your tank before you cycle it, I highly recommend that you go with the potted version of the plant because it's far hardier in my experience. But if you're cycling your tank using the dark start method, and I link to my guide on that specific method in the description, and then you're going to be adding your plants after the tank is cycled and can manage ammonia and nitrite levels at undetectable levels, you can go with either the potted variety or the in vitro variety without issue. But I have noticed that the in vitro variety of Staurogyne Repens does seem to have issues with higher ammonia levels than usual during the cycling process for the first month before it becomes established in the tank, so keep that in mind. But unlike other common mid-ground plants for nano tanks such as dwarf cryptocoryne or the smaller Echinodorus varieties, which are rosette plants and often have sloped leaves, Staurogyne Repens is actually a stem plant. When planted densely, it creates a stable leafy surface which a betta fish can easily rest on, similar to how they rest on Anubias leaves. Because of its dense foliage, Cooley would often search through it for food granules that my shrimp had dragged inside too, giving him some extra enrichment for his tank. Another bonus is that unlike most stem plants in the hobby, Staurogyne Repens usually maxes out at around 10 cm or 4 inches, so depending on your setup you might never have to trim this plant, making it a very low maintenance option. Next up is Monstera Adansoni, and this is actually a house plant, but you can grow it on the rim of your aquarium with the base of its stem dipped into the water for its roots to go into the water and absorb excess nutrients. I know that this style of planting isn't for everyone, but it is becoming more and more popular in the hobby, and it's something that I'm using myself more frequently too. I had to remove mine from Marmalade's tank when I switched her over to my new rack as there wasn't enough space above the tank, but I have since moved it to a different aquarium. When it was on Marmalade's tank, she did seem to like exploring the roots of the Monstera in the tank that were grown through the water column, seeing if she could find anything to snack on, offering some additional enrichment. In this specific plant holder, I have peace lily, pothos and tradescantia grown alongside the Monstera Adansoni, but the Monstera is the one that's produced the vast majority of this root mass, and that's why I personally recommend it for better enrichment. Like the roots of the Amazon frogbit that I mentioned earlier, the roots of this Monstera spread out and give plenty of room for the betta fish to get in and out of the roots without issue, compared to something like tradescantia roots which tend to clump up and make it difficult for the betta to explore. And because the Monstera is mounted to the tank glass above the water, it has easy access to atmospheric CO2, helping it grow at a rapid pace, helping it suck up a lot of excess nutrients and toxins from the water column to help keep things safe for your Betta. Finally, we have Limnophila Sessiliflora, and unfortunately this plant is a controlled species in the USA, but as far as I know it is available in every other country. It's in both of my current Betta fish tanks, and both Bettas do seem to like hiding amongst the Limnophila stems in their tanks, but that's not the main reason I'm featuring it in this video. I often get asked for Betta safe plants, especially from people who are keeping long-tailed Bettas who are worried about their fins or tails getting torn. For the record, I think that the risk of fin or tail damage to a Betta from the vast majority, if not all, aquarium plants in the hobby is extremely low, but Limnophila Sessiliflora stands out because it's especially gentle. When grown underwater, its leaves do fan out, making it look fuller and a lot larger than it actually is. But these leaves are incredibly soft and flimsy, and if I pull a stem out of the water, you can see how the leaves simply collapse in on themselves under their own weight, folding away. This means that even if a long-tailed Betta does swim through the Limnophila Sessiliflora, these leaves are simply going to bend and let that Betta fish swim through without issue, like my current 2 short-tailed Bettas in their individual tanks. They have no issue getting through this plant at all. Now if we quickly compare that to something like hornwort, which does look similar, we can see that it has far stiffer leaves that hold their rigid shape even when I lift it out of the water. And again, I don't think this is going to cause issues with your Betta's fin or tail, but you can see the difference in the stems and leaves of Limnophila Sessiliflora. I know I talk about this a lot, but Limnophila Sessiliflora has a very fast growth rate, making it a great option to keep your water parameters safe and stable for your Betta too. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end. I hope it's been helpful. Thanks for watching and good luck with your planted Betta fish tanks.